The F7C Hornet series of ships are an excellent set of medium fighters that have strong versatility when it comes to their fit. The Hornet comes in 4 main variants, and they're almost identical when it comes to their combat capability. I'm using the Hornet Ghost because it's the best combat variant of the 4. I'll talk about why later in the video. I'll tackle VHRT bounty missions using both a repeater fit and a cannon fit, so let's get into it. The Hornet has typical maneuverability for a medium fighter, which means it's not particularly agile. You've got a much better pitch rate than yaw rate, so we're going to want to always roll and pitch towards our target rather than turning left and right to line them up. Here I'm using laser repeaters and I'm fighting a hurricane. Though it may look like we're just jousting them, you'll notice that as I'm passing him, I'm actually trying to strafe to the right to get around them, while rolling my ship so that I can just pitch upwards to line them up. If I'm successful, I'm going to end in a position either behind them or above them, where I get a bunch of time on target while they slowly try to turn around to face me. I keep strafing my ship towards their backside to try and maximize that window of opportunity, and we're able to take them out. Now we're against 2 Valks in a hurricane, and we're going after the mission target Valkyrie first. We strafe upwards using our strong bottom thrusters to try and prevent a joust, and do an okay job of keeping that Valk in front of us. As we start seeing enemy shots flying our way, we perform a corkscrew maneuver to minimize incoming damage by rolling and strafing to make ourselves hard to hit. This works until we get a bit too close to the Valk, and then we start taking some shield damage. We're not the smallest or most agile ship, so you're likely going to take some shots, so you just need to keep calm and recognize that as long as you pilot yourself into a good firing position, you're still going to come out ahead with the immense DPS that you can put out. After finishing off the first Valk, we quickly recharge our shields while lining up our next target. We target the other Valk first because it's the slower, easier target and it puts out a lot of DPS. We do some more corkscrewing to try and shake off some incoming damage, and try to do that whenever we're recharging our ammo. When I'm firing, I'll often steady my movement to help make aiming easier and to actually apply my damage, rather than missing while maneuvering wildly. I'll especially do that if my shields are holding, because if I can use up some shields and end the fight quicker, that's a trade that I'm happy to take. I'm going to top off my shields while targeting this next hurricane, who we left for last, because they can be the trickiest target to kill because of their smaller size and tendency to joust us. It's exactly what happens here on this first pass, although if you saw, I was trying to fly off to the left to open up the angle so that I could pitch towards them before they got behind me, but I wasn't quick enough. As we line them up and start firing, I'm focusing more on my piloting than on lining up the target. I know that the hurricane is going to try to fly at me and try to get behind me, and I don't want to let that happen. So I slow my speed and start strafing sideways so that they're going more sideways by me rather than directly past me. This gives me a bunch of time on target to land a bunch of my shots. However, the hurricane is facing me during this and finally succeeds in flying past me here, so I'm actually going to use this opportunity to commit to the exchange and fly past him while recharging my shields and flying up to reposition myself over the direction he was traveling. I use my superior pitch to turn back towards him, and we've got ourselves in a great position relative to them. We get a bunch of free shots while they fly at us, but we're prepared for it and roll so that we can pitch and thrust up to match their movement and keep them in front of us and get more time on target. Something breaks off their ship while our shields are still full, so we smell blood in the water here. We'll keep focusing on our piloting to keep them in front of us, but even if we got a head-on exchange at this point, we'd still take it because we may just kill them outright. Now we're both facing each other, so I'm taking some damage, but that's okay. I commit, and I'm able to take him out. Now let's take a look at some combat with cannons. Cannons have more effective DPS than repeaters because even though they have the same DPS when firing, cannons can fire twice as long before needing to recharge. To balance this, they have half the projectile speed of repeaters and 20% lower range. Repeaters will also land more shots at their max range because a cannon shot's lower speed gives the target more time to change its direction after you've fired your shot. This means that cannons do better against larger and slower targets like that Valkyrie that we just killed and Vanguard Wardens. We'll fight another Valk to talk through the combat. We approach at SCM speed as always to give ourselves our maximum maneuverability and make sure to pitch and thrust upwards to prevent the Valkyrie from passing us and to keep them in our firing line. We shake off incoming fire with a corkscrew while fighting under around 700 meter range to help our shot accuracy, and it's not going to take long before this Valkyrie is done. Lastly, we'll show cannons against the trickier Hurricane. Since it's a smaller target, it'll be a bit harder to hit with the slower cannon projectiles, so my priority isn't just lining up a shot. I'm actually hunting for an advantageous position to maximize my time on target. So you'll see that rather than just trying to point at them, I'm trying to fly past them to get around them and behind them, and I'm willing to let them get a couple shots on me while I spend that shield to get into a good firing position. Once I get it, I'm able to spend my full ammo reserves and get them down to red body in the first pass. They're able to get back into a head-on position, so I again try to rotate around them and get into a good position to be able to land shots. If you just joust with Hurricanes, they'll come out ahead because of their higher shields and DPS, so the winning strategy is to use our agility to give us better time on target. For the fit, you can go full repeater or full cannon, but since you'll be facing Hurricanes, I'd recommend repeaters because it makes Hurricanes a lot easier to deal with. All laser repeaters and cannons are the same size, do the same DPS, so we'll go with CF series repeaters because they're the cheapest, and FL series cannons because they have no weapon spread whereas the other cannons do. You get more DPS from the Hornet by adding the turret for 2 size 2s on the back, and you could technically get even more by swapping the size 3 gun on the nose for the turret that has 2 size 1s. But I found that if you take head-on damage, that turret on the nose can get damaged and disable the guns, so I go with the fixed size 3, which gives almost the same DPS and even more survivability. For missiles, you want EM missiles, since most ships in 315 have large EM signatures. You can use whatever size you want, but I prefer size 1s to get more of them. For the size 1 shields, you want the industrial grade A Palisades, which have the highest shield amount, recharge rate, and ballistic damage protection. If you have the Hornet Ghost or Tracker, I recommend upgrading the power plant to a JS series, since otherwise you'll need to overclock the default one. The other variants of the Hornet don't need to change it though. You can leave the coolers on all ships in 315 alone, and for the quantum drive I recommend either the Voyage or the Atlas to be able to quantum travel quickly while still getting anywhere in the system on one tank. Now I want to talk more about why the Hornet Ghost is the best variant. People often recommend the Super Hornet because it has the best combat fit by default. But you can easily buy the Super Hornet's gun turrets in various stores around the verse and put them on the other variants. This actually makes the Super Hornet, which is the combat variant, the Hornet with the lowest combat effectiveness, because it's the least maneuverable and it's missing 2 size 2 missile racks compared to the others. The Super Hornet does let you have a co-pilot control the turret in the back though, but if they're not there, the pilot can control it anyway, so it doesn't really add much value. So in 315, I recommend the Hornet Ghost because it's got the lowest weight, the lowest signature, and it's cheaper than all of the variants except the plain F7C Hornet. The differences are small though, so if you've already got a Hornet, just stick with that one. If we were to compare the Hornets against other light and medium fighters, I'd say it's a bit less agile but a good deal more durable, with more hull HP and a whopping 10% energy damage reduction, which is the most that you get on a medium fighter. I don't find the agility to be an issue though, because as you saw in the combat footage, I'm easily able to position myself where I want to against VHRT targets. Sure, it's not as fast as the light fighters, but the high sustained DPS and tankiness more than make up for it. Plus I really like that you can easily see 4 MFDs worth of info without needing an eye tracking setup. The minor downside is that in its combat configuration, you can't really store any personal inventory in there, so it's not great for FPS missions. But overall, I'm really happy with the Hornet and I use it regularly when I feel like grinding out some bounties. In my VHRT tier list, I put it solidly in the A tier, and I recommend it as a great dedicated VHRT combat ship if you want something a bit more agile than the Vanguard. So that's all for the Hornet folks. I hope you've liked this video. Cheers.